Welcome to this series of interviews of the European Parliamentary Financial Services Forum. And thank you to Ms. Doherty for accepting this interview today with us. Ms. Doherty, this is the first term as a member of the European Parliament in 2024, and also you have become a member of the steering committee of the EPFSF. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi there, and thank you very much for having me on to chat today. Regina Doherty is my name. I'm an MEP for our capital city, Dublin, in Ireland, newly elected since last June, but had about maybe 15 years of both local and national parliament experience before I came here. I was a former Minister for Social Protection and Employment Affairs for a number of years and former government chief whip. And despite that experience, I never held a finance portfolio. So when I arrived here in May, one of the committees that I was very keen to be involved with is the Econ Committee, which is all things financial services, as you well know, and it's terribly interesting. So happy to be here to talk today.
Excellent. And we are very glad that you already joining the European Parliament, decided to become a member of the steering committee of the EPFSF. What motivated you to take that step?
I think, first of all, Ireland is a very, very large exporter of financial services. I think so. We have a really, really vested interest, number one, in making sure that there's a strong, stable, dynamic and innovative marketplace. But also it's the way we raise money for major public and private investments, not just in Ireland, but across the European Union. So I needed to make sure, first of all, that I fully understood how the market works, how it doesn't work, and what changes we needed to make from a policy platform perspective or a legislative perspective. And I thought the forum was the best way for me to learn from, obviously, the expertise and the experience of other people who've been there for years. And I'm finding it very interesting. So that's probably the real motivator for me. But also, I do have to say that Ireland's very large industry of financial services is something that's very, very important to us. We want to make sure that we have opportunities to grow, to expand and to invest across the European Union.
Absolutely. And I think that, Philip, you chose a very good place precisely to achieve that objective. Yeah. And one of the things that the EPFSF offers is to try to bridge the gap between policymakers and financial services stakeholders, because we are both sitting around the same table. How do you see that, and what's your opinion about trying to bridge that gap?
So again, what's interesting since I arrived here is that every sector of the financial services market has its own kind of European and world view as to how the market should be run. I think our perspective as policymakers, but also within the forum, is to take a kind of world view as to all of their asks, but then make policy decisions on the basis of the best outcomes for not just our citizens and our countries, but also for their savings and their investments. And I think that's the beauty of being able to be in the forum, is to be able to see all of the asks, but also to be able to stand back and say, right, from a policy perspective, this is the best outcome. It mightn't give everybody what they're asking for, but it's to ensure that we have a dynamic, innovative marketplace to allow savers to be investing, in products that are relatively safe, risk-free, but also get a good return from them, but also for the industries to make money at the same time, which is what they're all obviously there for, to do in the first place.
That's excellent. And I must say, this speaks very highly about you, because as a politician, I think this is one of the core objectives, right? To try to understand all the different actors and to get the best, not only for the citizens, but also for the economic players, indeed. I have been looking through your CV. I mean, you made a very short introduction about yourself, because I see that you have many responsibilities already in the European Parliament. Among those, may I highlight three that came to my eye. You are a vice chair of the Committee on Taxation. You are also a member of the Internal Market Committee and a member of the Economics and Monetary Affairs Committee, in the Econ Committee, which is the one that mostly affects financial services. Yeah. Which issues or which topics are you most interested in this term that you will be now working in this forum?
I think the two committees for me blend quite nicely together, because consumer affairs and consumer rights are very much upheld when you provide opportunities for companies to give best practice, best offering, best innovation to the customers. Then everybody has a win-win. I'm particularly interested in our new Commissioner Albuquerque. We talk about having 3 trillion euros of savings sitting in investments, banks, sitting in post offices and credit unions, earning very, very little money. And we have an environment where people are risk adverse, and we don't have the instruments for people to be able to make investments, in a local or a national basis that actually provides some outlets that are financially secure, obviously with small risks, as long as they know what those risks are, but to enable us to unlock all of those savings, all of those euros that are sitting in the banks. And not only does that address maybe the 800 billion euros that Professor Draghi said that we needed to try and make the EU competitive again, it allows actually people to take their money out of their post office or out of their high street bank and actually invest it in an instrument that's going to make them more money than just sitting there doing nothing for them. At the same time, it benefits the European Union to allow the engine, which is this common market for money that we've all been trying to strive for the last number of years, and not quite reaching it. And we talk about the difficulties in the CMU. If we can do this and do it correctly in the savings and investments market, well, then maybe it'll show us a roadmap how we get to banking union, to the capital markets, all of the other things that we've had difficulties with. And it'll allow us to actually provide the financial service providers, give opportunities to those savings and hopefully now new investors, give them routes to be able to make better money, better returns on their money, but in an environment where they are financially literate. And I think that's a major issue that we need to talk about across the European Union. We have a literacy rate from a finance perspective that's far below par than it needs to be. It's even worse when it comes to women, which is a really kind of sad indictment for all of us. But we need to get to an environment where our financial services sector are able to use innovation, use technology, use AI, use all of the new wonderful things, that are available to us to be able to create a savings and investment culture and to cash in on that 3 trillion euros that's just sitting in banks or post offices at the moment. And that's where I'd love to see our major profile to go to now. And I'm really, really positive and welcome the fact that Commissioner Albuquerque is looking at that with the savings and investment strategy.
Excellent. And I see that you are elaborating with very concrete ideas on the demand side, right? How we can really channel all these investments into capital markets, and by raising levels of financial literacy, trying to make these savings and investments accounts or whatever that means into action. Let's look now briefly into the supply side, meaning about the companies that we need to go listed into the market. This is also an area that in the past term of the European Commission, there were some measures put forward to facilitate that companies were going into markets. But also, very importantly, the debate has been taken by the simplification of regulation, right? Because companies are also suffering, if I may say like that, some of these requirements that had a very legitimate goals, but in the end resulted into administrative burden that is making it difficult. How do you see that?
Yeah, so I use an example that was shared with me recently, where there is a new investment vehicle in Germany that's working very, very well. And people that wouldn't have ever invested beforehand, they were the people that were keeping their money in their savings accounts or their post offices, have now started to invest. But in order for that company to actually expand into France or Spain or Portugal, they would have to do exactly the same setup, costs and strategy, and all of the bureaucratic red tape that they were involved with in establishing in Germany, in every single other country, which just seems absolutely crazy. And we talk about having a single market in the European Union. I don't think there's a true single market for any sector, and there certainly isn't a true single market for the financial services sector. So if we want scalability for our companies, it has to be as easy to do business in Germany as it is in Ireland, as it is in the Netherlands, with all of our countries. If we want people to invest in other countries, the people in Ireland have to be able to know the financial products that are available to them from Germany or Finland or Sweden or Poland. And I don't think that currently exists. And so we're still all in our silos, either in our country-specific silos, in our country-specific business silos. And so we make it difficult for you to scale your business from Germany. That needs to stop. We talk about the value of the European Union, and it started as a peace project, which is wonderful, and that's the main core and goal. But the economic realities, or the realization of the potential of that 400 million market, hasn't actually been cracked in any specific sector so far. We still have VAT issues, we have taxation issues, we have border control. We still have too many issues that stop companies and countries from being able to sell into each other in what we call a single market, which isn't really still a single market. So we need to break down those specific barriers for investment companies to be able to trade in all of the other countries that we have in the 27 member states, not just the ones that they're resident in. And we need to kind of recognise what the regulatory burden is and release it through the simplification process that we're going through in the next 6-9 months.
That will be very good and very welcome, I think, by all the companies in the European Union. And maybe last question I will have for you is also whether you have some ideas how we can ensure that new legislation is not adding administrative burden. Because we are thinking about looking backwards, right, on trying to simplify what has already been in place, but what about forward-looking?
So for argument's sake, one of the first questions I asked when I arrived here a number of months ago was that would we not withdraw some of the pieces of legislation that were currently on the books on the basis of that we'd had the letter report, we'd had the Draghi report, we hadn't had the omnibus bill yet, which now obviously since come. Lots of pieces of legislation still exist. We need to be really, really mindful that if we're going to introduce something new, that it isn't just a new burden, it isn't just a new regulation, that there is actually innovation and that there's an end goal that benefits not only the consumer but also the country and the specific industry that we're talking about. And I don't think that's just true for financial services, it has to be true of all industries and all the legislation that we're passing. I think the danger is that when we get through the simplification process of the omnibus bill, people might feel that that's done now and we'll go back to the way we always did things. And I don't think, first of all, there shouldn't be an appetite, but I don't think there should ever be a situation where we do go back to the way things used to be. We can't have a situation where we are just a legislative body, even though that's what we are. I appreciate, obviously, the legislation we pass is supposed to improve processes and improve outcomes for people's lives. Some of what we've done in the last number of years, probably because of the amount of it in such a short space of time, has actually not improved anything. And so I think we need to make sure that we don't ever get into that situation again, whereby our intentions are good over here, that we ignore the reality of the outputs of what we're doing. We can't have that. And so I think we need to be really discerning about the new legislation that we pass. And there will be needs for new legislation because there'll be new innovation. But it needs to make sure that it enhances the citizens' lives, the products, the services, you know, the cost of living, the standard of living, the societal impacts, the social. It needs to enhance, not impinge. And I think that's the very fine line that we need to kind of manage over the next couple of months to create a new norm when we're passing legislation, as opposed to just seeing ourselves as a regulatory body, because we need to be more than just that. So.
Thank you so much, and thank you very much for sharing your vision and your very articulate ideas. And I really hope that most of them will come into reality, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.